And then I wanted to show two more that are more imaginative based. So
after this one,
so after this one, yeah.
We got. Oh, is that Dexter again?
It is Dexter.
Okay. And where is Dexter? It looks like that looks like it'd be like Colorado or something as you're heading west.
I think it could be.
Because I've traveled all over because of music. I forget the highway that goes east to west, but it's great because as you're going through, Missouri, Kansas, Utah, it's flat. Well, not Utah, but as you're going through the Midwest and heading into the West,
and then you slowly start to see the blue mountain range.
You see the mountain range, yeah. And then there's a highway. I think it's 5 that goes north and south. So you're going north. You look to your left, and it's just this beautiful, continuous mountain range. And then you look to the right, and it's as far as you can see. It's really wild. So that's the first thing that pops in my mind. That looks like Colorado.
Yeah. I have an aunt that lives in Colorado. It's been my dream to live there. Maybe it'll happen one day.
It's beautiful. It is. The air is crisp and dry, which is nice if you have allergies.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that part too. You get used to the elevation, then but.
So this is a teeny tiny little sketch. It's like a 4x6 inch.
Okay.
It does have Dexter. It has some rabbits in there, if you can tell. And then
right there on the bottom right hand corner.
And then a chair. Another domestic element. I'm not sure why, but I think that combining these natural things like animals and the natural elements outside, the water, the trees, with something that brings it back to this time, just a little bit, just poses more questions. And I've often used the metaphor that I make poetic paintings because I want that in my paintings to come through. I want them to have a sense of beauty, but also a simplicity that if you read them over and over and over again, then you start to really see the true purpose or potential of what's inside of them. And they can be deciphered differently depending on who's looking at them.
Yeah, they internalize it and they feel a certain emotion from it. When I look at that, and this is just coming from a total layman here, but it's the most random.
It's random?
To me. You got a dog, a bunny, a chair from your living room out in Colorado, out in the prairie, in the plains leading west into the mountains, But it's just interesting because it does raise questions. It's like, I'm trying to think of, the animals and the nature makes sense, but the chair is what really oh, that's interesting. That's the first thing I look at is like, why is there a chair there? And so the chair,
comfort maybe.
Yeah. The chair represents home.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Maybe you're saying, I wish that was my home.
No.
I wish I could move my chair here.
I don't think I'm that literal about it, but I'm interested in the rabbits. I use rabbits a lot. When I was a little kid, my grandmother made me this rabbit baby.
Okay.
And I think they're interesting. They're prey animals, right? But they're also thought of as quick-witted or
fast moving.
They
represent life because they reproduce so fast in so many numbers.
You see the rabbit colony in the background. But I think I was more interested in the texture of all the fur with the landscape, like the fur on the rabbit, the fur on the dog, the fur on the blanket coming across the chair.
Yep.
How we recycle elements. We're not so far removed from that. We've just made it into something that fits our needs. I think dogs, the domestic quality of dogs, and he's he's sleeping right on the blanket and comfortable in the chair.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think you can get that same sense of comfort from being outside.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
breathing the fresh air,
going for a walk,
feeling the wind. Yeah.
But I'm not, I want to figure out how to combine the real world, my real life, my home life, with things that pop up that are not so easily talked about in my subconscious. So just kind of trusting the process of, I wonder why I'm thinking that. I wonder why I think that would be interesting. And instead of just getting it out and having it around and sitting around, and then maybe a year from now, it'll make more sense.
That's interesting. Do you always keep your mind open to a painting where in the moment you have a certain emotion, memory, but with the fact that your emotions could change in a year the next time you look at it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
These sketches, I do a ton of sketches, and some of them stick around. Like, they're just nagging at me. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but there's something about them that's interesting that I want to look at further. So the ones that I'm showing you right now are some of those that I just keep around. You know, I've hung them up. I keep them around me while I'm working so that they're just sitting there kind of in the background.
Giving you that comfort. They give you that feeling, right?
Or just giving me, just so that I don't forget what I'm wanting to do with them. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, as a musician and thinking about all my years on the road, and I see these pictures from 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then when my child was young and everything, it's nostalgic, you know, but I always reflect and be like, man, like I think about the person I was then and the mental and emotional stability, the lack thereof then in the maturity level, because I was, you know, a heavy drinker, you know, and so when I see like a picture of Skylar, 5 years old, it's cute and it makes me tear up because she's growing up and all that stuff. But then it's also, man, like, oh man, it just puts me right back into that feeling of like, I can feel a visceral reaction to seeing these pictures and how I felt back then, the stresses I was dealing with and how I've grown since then. Do you have that same experience when you look at older work where it puts you back into a certain period of your life and how you felt and what your maturity level was and the things you didn't know yet?
It does, in a way. I've done a lot of commissions, and all the commissions I get for some reason are so sad. It's always the saddest story, but it's because the person wants to change that memory in some way. Okay. They want to remember it, but they want it to not be a painful memory. Yeah. And I think for the artwork that I create, if I'm looking at photographs, yes, sometimes I can see. Yeah,
when you see your daughter, you know, walking into kindergarten, you know, that really has an effect on you. But then it always turns into being reminded of how I was feeling that day. Right. Or that period of my life, stresses or whatever was going on in my life. You know. But so you have a different version of that?
I think that the paintings kind of replace that.
Okay. You're documenting.
I'm documenting, but I'm documenting in a more beautiful way.
Yeah, sure. And it's therapeutic in my mind. This is just my, you know, observation, because it's no secret to my audience. You know, I've been in therapy for 10 years. We've talked about it. It's all about getting it out. Journaling is I don't do it, but it's always a number one tool that they'll teach you is journaling. This process of writing it out flushes it out. So you find the painting.
You would write things you would never say. Yeah. And you would paint things you would never say.
Yeah. And so you feel like you get that flushing feeling.
Yes.
When it comes out of you like that. Yeah. And this is your coping skill.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a really nice coping skill.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful coping skill.
Thank you.
You know, Mine, pacing the apartment and stressing out, not so good.
Cleaning's good.
No, and playing guitar. No one can see it, but behind this curtain, I have my bass and my guitar hanging up, and it'll be in the middle of the day after a couple Zoom meetings and just work. I'm like, I got 45 minutes before the next meeting. I'll push all the work to the side and just break out the guitar and just play here, and just clear my head. So that's a good coping skill, and I lean on that more these days. That's why I had to have it, so I could do that here. I'm going to be here most of the day. I wanted to be able to access that tool, that skill,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I think, they say pain is a good driver for artists, and I've definitely made some good work when I've let it build up too much and needed to exhale on a canvas. But, you can also make really great work when you're not sad.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone has the spectrum of emotions.
Right.